Welcome everyone to Stone Ridge Confab. Today, we really want to go through obviously the 2025 Wave 1 release notes that really encompass our favorite products that we love to support and implement here at Stone Ridge Software. More specifically, we're going to be covering Business Central. We're going to be covering the customer engagements apps like sales, field service, and customer service. And we're also going to be going through really the finance and supply chain perspective. And this time we've got a special introduction. We're going to start looking at some of those Copilot-based capabilities as actually a separate section, so we can talk through what those capabilities are and what you can expect kind of here moving forward as we obviously have more and more around that capability, right? So that being said, I'll just do some quick introductions here for everyone that's on stream. So my name is Scott Frappier. My role is transition from the Chief Software Architect to the Chief AI Architect. So I get to learn about everything AI and how we use it to really support business use cases. And it's been a lot of fun, and it's been a great adventure. Joining me today, I've got two other experts in our industries that are part of our pre-sales team. I don't know, Mr. Bill and Eric. I'll have Bill, why don't you do your introduction first?
Sure. Thank you, Scott. Great to be here. Bill Kern, I'm a pre-sales architect for our Dynamics CE or customer engagement platform, and talking about all those different components from sales to customer service to field service, customer insights. I've been part of the Dynamics community for over 20 years, so it's great to share these new features and releases with you.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Bill. Go ahead, Eric.
Perfect. Hi, good morning. My name is Eric Vandenberg. I'm a pre-sales architect for Business Central for Stone Ridge. I'm excited to be here, and I've been in the industry for the last 25 years working in the Microsoft product and principally the food space. So looking forward to this presentation today.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you both here. Usually, even Rob said it in the background here, we've got some new faces. It's not very typical recently that we've had others come to the stream, and quite candidly, we want to do more with that, right? Because we've got a lot of great capabilities inside of all these different products, and while I try to represent as much as I can all the time, it's not really humanly possible to cover everything all the time. So really excited to have both of you gentlemen here to kind of go through these features. Just want to do a couple just housekeeping things just to kind of start the conversation. So today, really, like we said, we're going to be going through really that 2025 Wave 1 release plan. And you've probably already read through a bunch of it. Remember, these release plans are typically actually broadcasted months before the actual release, so you can understand what those capabilities are. And obviously, we're not going to be able to go through every single little feature. Just as an example, like ProJobs had a lot of tiny little features that weren't really big, so we're not going to cover as much obviously there. But a lot of the most impactful features that we feel are going to change maybe the narrative or capabilities of how we interact with business systems, or just making it easier to use from that perspective, are really what we highlight as we go through this. So that's just kind of what we're going to be covering. And then remember, one final thing, remember, this is Stone Ridge Confab. And what does that mean? If you have questions, ask them. If you've got any type of comments, you want to go ahead and make fun of us, it doesn't matter what it is. We really just love to have that engagement from you to really understand really where you're at, what questions you have, and what features you feel are really cool or not cool. As an example, I know Mr. Clyde, you're on this stream as well right now. There's some new demand planning features that I'm going to be covering today that are going to be kind of fun to kind of have an overview around on the supply chain side. So with that, what we're going to do is this stream as well is a little bit longer. It's a 90-minute stream as opposed to a 60-minute stream. If you can't make it for the full hour, I get it, right? Come back to it, look at it. What we're going to do is we're going to break it out where we're going to have our Business Central content go first. So Eric's going to go ahead and really present and talk about really the new capabilities that are going to be coming with 2025 Wave 1 with Business Central. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to go through and go through the customer engagement apps with Bill to kind of identify, like in sales, field service, customer service, what those new capabilities are inside of the solution. And what I'll do is I'll wrap it up with finance, supply chain, and then we'll do some Copilot enablement perspectives here to share as we go through this. So I guess with that, Eric, I think it's a pitter-patter, let's get at her, right, type of a thing?
Let's get moving.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen, and you are good to go. Let's go ahead and go through the Wave 1.
Sounds good. Again, thank you all very much for letting me be a part of this. Before I kind of get started, I just want to say, hey, Scott, I'm looking around the CoFab studio. It looks pretty good. Looks pretty spacious here. I appreciate the invite.
Right,
so thank you.
no problem.
All right, so we're here to talk about the 2025 Wave 1 or V26 release. And I personally like to theme stuff. I like to put a little label to it. So I'm going to call this Your Day from Chaos to Champion. All right, so what are we going to look at today? So before I get started really on this, I just want to kind of give you a little bit of background on my presentation style. I'm more of a functionality person, so I'm going to look at the functionality from a real world perspective, and I'll hopefully give you a couple of key analogies that help you understand what we're trying to do and what Microsoft is trying to do from a deployment perspective. I kind of look at it like, I love my coffee. It's really good, gives me the kick I need, but I don't necessarily know how to make the beans right now. I just know that the coffee's good. So let's take a look at it. So today we'll talk about a quick overview from Wave 1. We'll talk about the key features for deployment. We'll have some end user goodies and some real world magic there. And then we're going to come full circle and talk about next steps.
You do know, Eric, that more often than not now people are drinking Celsius as opposed to coffee, right?
Okay, fair enough. I'll have to work on that. That's a new one for me.
That's another one.
On that one. Yep. All right. So as Scott mentioned before, there is a huge list of forms and functions and new releases in every release, to be honest with you, but this release in particular. And, I could probably spend about 2 to 3 hours on it, and I'm going to put a couple of other videos together that'll help with that. But Scott said I had to share my time, so I'm going to take you through about 20 minutes of this, and I'll pick out some of the charmers in this. But the reality is you can go to the Microsoft Learn site. You can either click the link that's in this presentation here, or you can go to the Learn site and just type in Wave 1 2025. And it will take you to a full list of everything that's there. You can read through the documentation. I highly recommend it, especially if you're that kind of person that wants to go out and see how things work. So feel free to go in there. But the second part of this really is that in this biannual release, it's based on your feedback. And what I want you guys to do right now is just kind of put that in the back of your head, because I'm going to come full circle to that at the end of this presentation.
Just so you know, Eric, you got a coffee supporter in chat. Clyde said coffee addicts unite. So
very good.
There we go.
Let's do that.
Right.
All right. So I'm going to start with kind of the deployment and dev group. There's a couple of new features I think are pretty cool around this. The first one is that the sandbox preview. I don't know about you, but historically, when I went to upgrade take it to the next wave, I'd have to upgrade the sandbox, and it was set up and it'd be in there. It's great, but it always left me lacking. The reason why it left me lacking is it didn't have any of the extensions or the development stuff that I had from my live system. So I could only test a deployment so much. And the thing at Microsoft, what they did here was they added a function that allows you to deploy the sandbox with the new wave release with your extensions. So now you can actually truly get a true version of your system and be able to test it and make sure it's working for your environment. And that's a really cool thing, something we haven't had in the past. The second thing we've got here is that from a developer perspective, you would develop an application, you develop all the tables behind it, and then when you want to evolve that application, you'd write new code. Well, you had to bring the tables with you, or you had to bring the data from the old tables into the new tables. Honestly, that's kind of risky, and definitely I can tell you more than one developer will tell you that's pretty slow. So what Microsoft did is they can now do the whole thing in one fell swoop. I kind of equate it. My analogy would be like, let's say you opened up a new warehouse, and you were going to move from your old warehouse to your new warehouse. Well, the old way of doing things, you have some guy sitting at the new warehouse at the back door saying, yeah, bring that raw material, put it over there, and do something over here. Well, the way that they're going to do it now is that they remove the guy from the warehouse, and you take all of your raw materials and you move it to your new warehouse automatically, which is a really cool feature. It speeds things up and just helps you get to market a little bit faster. So kind of a cool feature there. Then we've got the developer productivity. And this is kind of a neat deal. And I'm going to use another analogy effectively here. So think of Business Central written in AL code. It's like a recipe. So if you're a developer, you're going to be writing this recipe, but you need your ingredients. And your ingredients are all these little bits and pieces. You might have a logo that has to go draw from somewhere else. You have maybe a script that reads current inventory, something like that. So you have to, if I go back to the kitchen analogy, you have to go to your pantry, maybe go to the store, and even go to your neighbor's house and get that cup of sugar in order to get the development that you're looking to try to get. Well, in this wave release, you can now pack all of those resources, all of those ingredients inside the extensions themselves. It's kind of like DoorDash for Business Central. It gets delivered to your house, it's all ready to go, and you can put it together pretty quickly. And ultimately, for the end user, what you're doing is you're presenting a extension that is faster, that is easier to use, and ultimately faster to market. So something to keep your eyes on. I think that's going to be a really cool tool. All right, so e-documents. And this one, I'm going to tell you, this one had a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, in the sense that I don't know if anybody remembers the old incoming documents where you would have to use some format that I frankly had never heard of called People, or maybe you used an OCR translation service from a PDF and you'd have to bring it into Business Central. You'd go through this weird process of getting it to work and then go into your system. Well, that was tough, to say the least. I kind of equate that to taking a letter, going to a post office box and putting it in the post office box, waiting for somebody to now have to route it, get it to its end destination, and it's just this big process. Well, inside Business Central for this release, what we're going to be introducing to you is a lot more automation, a lot more functionality where not just take that invoice and run it through a process, it's actually going to receive the invoice, it's going to do the vendor assessment, it's going to apply it to the right vendor, it's going to put it through the right workflow, and ultimately it's going to set up your approval processes and then have somebody from AP post it. So if I go back to that analogy from the mailbox, it's like having a smart scanner on the front of the mailbox that automatically scans that letter, sorts it inside the mailbox, and gets it to the end destination without anybody actually having to use it. Kind of a neat feature.
Very cool.
Yeah. All right. So rounding out the options here, Copilot bonus. And this is kind of a segue into the next couple of slides. You're going to see a lot of involvement from Microsoft as far as Copilot agents go. You're going to start to see, not only are they going to be involved in sales, but you're going to see more purchasing, and you're going to see a lot more in other parts of the application. So if I go to this slide, what I want to kind of talk about is
Hey, Eric, can
really
I have you just pause real quick here? Can I have you actually stop your share and then reshare again just really quickly here?
You bet.
We're having some interesting technical difficulties where you guys were on pause for perpetuity here. So let me, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and redo the broadcast, and I will get some of this updated in the background here while we're doing it. Go ahead. We should be...
Perfect.
Actually, no, for some reason, let me just double check here what's going on. Why is it Mr. Bill is right there? This is an interesting bug inside of Teams, I think, that I found. I gotta love it. Let's see here. Speaker. Together mode. Doesn't do anything either. You gotta love it when Teams is having its problems, right? Sheesh. Alright, so I think what's going to happen here is that we'll basically do full screen as a part of this as I kind of look in the background to figure out what's going on. Why don't you keep going here, Eric?
Right.
You're just going to be frozen here as we're kind of doing this, though, just so everyone knows.
Not a problem. I had so many great slides.
Right.
It's fine. It's all good. All right, so we are effectively talking about Copilot and Copilot agents, and really this is the kind of stuff that gets me super excited. We get to talk about kind of where it's been from the beginnings to where it's at now, and talk about where it's going. And I know Scott, he's going to spend a great deal of time and has already he's been a great advocate for the AI agents coming forward, which is really, really super cool. What I really wanted to focus in on was the out-of-the-box stuff. What can you see at the base Business Central level? And this is really the start of your conversation, not only with the clients, but also start of the conversations internally with the teams. What can Copilot do out of the box, and how is it going to make my life a little bit better? Now, I'm going to give you a little honest assessment here. I think in this wave, I think Copilot was a little bit feature light. I think that they could have done more, but I think the reality is Microsoft is holding on to a couple of items that they're going to exponentially increase in the future waves, and you're going to see a lot more of the Copilot releases coming forward. So if I kind of talk about, the slide that I've got up here, which is I've got a humble beginning side. And really what Copilot is just a chat feature. You could go in, you could ask questions. It would kind of direct you into some Microsoft areas. It was what I might call like a neat parlor trick. Now, that was great, but what we've got moving forward is some really neat features, and Wave 1 is definitely going to be packed with a couple of these neat things. The first thing is that from a chat perspective, not only can you chat with Business Central about Business Central stuff, you're going to start being able to chat with Business Central about the extensions that you have installed. So if you have an extension out there that might be giving you a little bit of trouble, or an error that's out there that you don't know how to solve, you can chat with Copilot to help you solve that problem and also direct you to the right support area in order to handle that issue. Pretty cool feature, pretty expansive. I like to see some additional things around that. Already you can get into Copilot and get down to row level transactions and have it look up a particular customer invoice on a particular day, and that's kind of neat as well. The second thing that Microsoft has introduced is they've expanded on the sales agent. So this really is the first out-of-the-box AI agent in BC. Now, the previous releases, they had a manual order entry or like a basic Copilot suggestion type functionality. Well, with this release, they're going to be introducing end-to-end processes. And what that end-to-end process looks like is really receiving a request from your customer, having it go in and validate the inventory, the pricing, the ship to address, and then sending back out a quote, all within the constructs of Copilot and BC. So if I look at it from a real world perspective, I'm going to tell you that you got 50 loaves of bread to sell. You get a request, or you got a request for 50 loaves of bread. It will go through the process of validating that you have that in your inventory. It'll build the quote, it'll confirm the availability, and then it'll email it back out to your end customer. Now, that's going to save you minutes and hours of doing that processing individually. Now, it's also going to focus your team back on what's important to the organization, making sure that you're really building that infrastructure moving forward. All right, so a couple of other things. How are we back on the share? Or
we are, and so what I see, I was able to,
okay.
I popped out the presentation and magically the video starts working. So something with presenting while streaming, I guess, is a bug here. But yeah, I just want to add some things to this real quick here, Eric. To your point, like some of these features that we're going to see at this next level, right? Like the autofill, that type of stuff. Like those are actually features that are already inside of CE as well. So it's really kind of cool to see some of those features globally start getting added to basically every single application, because the feedback that I've heard, like sometimes it's really frustrating because there's some scenarios, as an example, where it was filling out fields for us inside of our Dynamics 365 sales. But after we got a lot of good configuration with it, it was fairly consistent in at least providing the right values for it. So that was a pretty cool feature, to be quite candid.
Nice. Yeah,
I appreciate the foundation you're putting forth, Eric, on agents and stuff like that, because I don't want to jump ahead or give a preview, but he's kind of doing the trailer for me to a number of agents and things I'm going to talk about on the CE side. So that's great.
Yeah. Yep.
Thanks, Bob. I'll go get my mailbox money here in a minute.
Right.
So
that's what's going on here. I see.
Yes, exactly. All right. So as I round out the clock here, the bottom two here are the purchasing side. And I've always thought that Business Central, and I understand why, Microsoft focused a lot on the sales side. That's really the area that's going to have the biggest bang for their buck. But now they're starting to invest time and material into the purchasing side. And where you're going to start to see in this wave some evolvement of the Copilot agents is you're going to start to see that Copilot's going to be able to take your purchase order and your purchase invoice and match them up from a quantity perspective and from a processing perspective. Typically, you'd see your AR team go in or your AP team go in, and they would have to match individual lines up, and they'd have to deal with discrepancies. Well, Copilot's going to start managing that for you. You can do that based on what's being received via email or document within the system. And you're going to start to see that the system can then do those variances for you and help you work with your vendors to resolve them. Now, evolving from that as well is the Copilot around bringing invoices in just dynamically. So from a purchasing standpoint, what you're going to see is that you'll get an invoice in through a couple of different methods. It'll go into Business Central, and it will isolate and identify the item. It'll identify the GL code, and just make sure everything is appropriate. The prices and the costs are all appropriate on the invoice. And then it can even you set up the workflow, and it can go through approvals, and ultimately your team will end up posting that through the system. So it's a really cool feature. I see a lot of potential in that down the road, especially when you're talking about inventory related transactions and things like that.
Yep.
Cool. Now, I kind of pimped this a little bit, but I can tell you my favorite thing in the world with Business Central and Copilot is this. I can literally go into any list screen. I can type in a real world question, and it will start to create the report for me. So in this case, I'm asking for what are my sales by customer year to date. I'm not using any fancy DAX terms. I'm not using anything fancy like that. I'm just asking the system to give me what I'm looking to try to get. So if I'm a sales leader, if I'm a CEO, I'm an executive, or I'm a business manager of some sort, I can go in and just start to evolve my reporting just by using my real world words. At the end of the day, I can just come in here, it'll create it for me, and it will save these reports so that I can use them later. Now, the nice thing is I don't necessarily need to have a data scientist create this for me, so it reduces the need for that. They can focus on the big things and the company-wide reporting and so forth. And one other nice thing about this is I can do this same functionality in Power BI. I can put in the words, it'll create the analysis inside Power BI for me. It's super cool to see. And I think you're going to start to see a lot more of this functionality coming down the road.
Yeah, that's a very cool feature. I've seen that before when you've presented it, Eric. Like it works really well. It's natural language. You can talk basically to it as well. Like a lot of people don't understand, like we're showing text here, but if you've got any type of voice assist or anything else like that, like on a phone or anything like that, like typically when I'm interacting with Copilot, I'm using voice to do it. So it's a really powerful feature, and candidly, I'd love to see this inside of like finance and supply chain, or even in the CE portion. And I think the CE already has some of that they've already developed with it, right? So this is even more powerful though compared to those two solutions, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so I've got a really basic, informal question, and in all fairness, what do you think your Copilot superhero sidekick should do? And it's not something I'm looking for today. If you want to shoot me an email, Scott, an email. If you got ideas, honestly, these are the things that we want to hear about. We want to continue to evolve, because not only do we have the ability to say, hey, this is how you do it today, but we have the ability to say, hey, we can look at this for tomorrow and start evolving some of these things and get in front of this based on what your needs are and so forth. So what is your superpower?
Right. This is a good one, Eric, because I mean, just really candidly, like it kind of ties into the conversation I'll be having a little bit more around Copilot. But one of the changes that people are going to have to really make around this is that agents are like virtual people, right? Like that's the whole intent of it, to be able to automate basically the processes in a business. Now, maybe right now it's a 6-year-old that you're trying to manage. Sometimes it feels like it, to be quite honest, as you go through some of those scenarios. But I'll tell you, what I see in the future here is that when you buy a business system, you'll have the ability as well to buy an agent to do AR clerk type activities or AP capabilities, right? To basically do the generation of those different types of documents. And what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to use natural language to tell it what you want it to do as part of its daily duties. So I think I think, like you said, like these use cases are just going to explode into automating. It's not like we're creating new features, we're just automating existing features that then allow us to scale the business, right? So I think this is a really important portion of it, to say, hey, like there's going to be use cases that you want to have automated, like sales order entry or purchase order entry or generating summary information, right? And I think, like you said, that's a really powerful capability of what Copilot can do inside of these platforms.
So true. I agree. Okay, so I am going to finish up on the last couple of slides here. Really, this is the last functionality slide, but we're talking about future proofing. How do you make sure that Business Central stays relevant in the future? How do you make sure that it continues to evolve from an integration standpoint? And the first integration point is the Shopify. It's the customer facing, it's the retail facing or customer facing standalone application. Probably about 3-4 years ago, you started to see some of that integration come into play, but you're going to start to see more and more of it. And I can tell you that in this wave release, they've taken a step forward in the sense that there's a lot more auto sync process. So it's not just having an item list available inside your Shopify system. It's now syncing up not only items, but inventory, pricing, business to business pricing, and even catalogs along those lines. You can set up catalogs for major customers, and you can see that in Shopify. And you're going to start to see just that synchronicity coming full circle in a lot of the D365 applications. And I'll talk about field service here in a second, but you'll see a lot more of that coming down the road. The field service integration, which is kind of a neat little thing, was introduced last wave release. And it's just starting the process of really evolving. And if you don't know what field service integration is, think of a repair station or repair technician that has to go out on site, right? You want them to have access to not only to be able to produce a sales order, maybe they're addressing something with a client or a customer on site, maybe they want to know what the inventory is. They need to be able to see that and manage that in real time. Well, in this release, you're going to start to see more and more of that, and the future's pretty bright for the field service side when they're going out on site and they've got to see what really is on inventory or create a purchase order to get stuff delivered.
Real quick, Eric, on field service, that's kind of my my love and what's there. But I will share with the group and everybody else is that is gaining traction and feet like mad.
Right.
Being in sales on the pre-sales side, we've probably got at least 4 or 5 opportunities that I'm working with our team on in talking about Business Central and field service, and we can provide that demonstration and show you guys, and it's powerful, it's keen, and we've got a number of prospects that are going to become customers here real fast because of that integration. So just know, as you guys have that, or as that's a portion of your business, that is a key integration, really well, strong, and we can help with that. And I'm excited about that one, as you can tell.
Oh yes, definitely.
Me as well. And I can tell you a real world example of that one right now. I lost my furnace about 30 days ago. And the poor guy was out here looking at the furnace, and he was calling his manager, trying to find parts, source all of this stuff. I'm like, let's just use Copilot and field service. I can introduce you. We can make the connection right then and there.
Right.
But
That's awesome.
yeah, so
Love
still waiting on my furnace. But anyways, so that being said, moving into the next one, which is ESG reporting. And if you don't know what ESG is, don't worry about it because not very many people do. But I will tell you, it's the environmental, social, and governance. It's really the tracking around energy consumption, tracking around emissions, waste, and things that are related to outputs from existing manufacturing organizations and so forth. Now, what's happening is you're seeing a shift governmentally based on whether it's EU or US or other governmental organizations where you're now being required to report on some of this stuff. So what Microsoft has added is an out-of-the-box functionality to be able to track this information and be able to generate the necessary reports that then can be sent on to some of the governmental agencies. Now, I'm going to make a point here in the sense that you may or may not think this applies to you. And if in some cases that may be true, but I can tell you that if you're selling to Walmarts, if you're selling to Kroger's, Costco's, Cisco's, these companies are all going to be asking you for these standards if you haven't already started to provide that. This is just a mechanism that helps you document it and represent it in a way that these agencies and these companies can start to use it. So,
that's awesome. And
then just to kind of follow up with the last one here, core functionality, you're going to see increased workflows. You're going to see more Power Automate integrations. You're going to see sharper business Power BI insights, stuff that's embedded in the dashboards, things like that. And those are some really cool stuff that are coming down the pipe. All right, so the final slide is this. What does the road ahead look like? So at this point, we're in the towards the end of March at this point, and the upgrades, the Wave 1, are sandbox ready at this point. You can go out, create a sandbox. You can upgrade to the 2025 Wave 1. Now, it's going to be available depending on your location at different times. And I can also tell you that the features evolved or get released over a period of time. So you may or may not be able to see some of the features that I talked about today. You may or may not be able to see some of the features that are listed in the Microsoft Learn site, but they are coming. And Microsoft does a pretty good job of listing what month they're going to be released. And they just have to go through a public process, a preview process, and then make some adjustments, and then they'll be released within the application itself. So I always say it's not over till it's over. And then the final thing here is, if we go full circle back to what I talked about at the beginning of the presentation, is that your feedback matters. Microsoft has this website, and if you want to click on it or go to it, it's really a website that takes people's ideas and options and documents it. So you can go there, you can add an idea, and you can get it voted on. So what I'm going to tell you is I encourage you to go to this website, read through some of these ideas that people have put out there for functionality, and some of it is industry specific, some of it is basic specific. It can be looked at for Business Central. It can be looked at for pretty much any Microsoft product, but go and take a look at what they have. And vote on the ones that you want, because the more votes an item gets, the faster it gets into product. And if you really want that, the faster it gets into product means you get to use that natively in BC more quickly than having to have somebody develop it later for you.
Awesome.
So, Scott, thank you very much.
Absolutely. That was a lot of fantastic content that you went through there. I think everyone on chat is having fun as well. Kind of to Rob's question, he was asking a little bit about the sales agents, creates quotes and schedules delivery options for selling inventory products, allocates inventory when needed, right? So I know that sales, it's an order agent, right? So it's an order line that it will generate as well. So technically it would allocate then inventory as a part of it. So I know that we were part of the beta or alpha program for that. Our team was, and I know that if you're interested in it and you're a BC customer, they're looking for people to potentially do more with that. So raise your hand, reach out to us, right? And we would be more than happy to get you connected then with Microsoft or whoever to really start pushing that forward. So that's a really great feature. And then Clyde just kind of taking shots at us. He can help us digest ESG there, Eric. So we can get Clyde involved with it, right, as part of it. So appreciate it, Eric. That was a fantastic job. Bill, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I may have to adjust just really quickly here, kind of your presentation, because of course I had to make it so you guys weren't in limbo and standstill forever, and we're good. Take it away, sir.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you, Eric. As I said, I appreciate the help in setting the table with those agents. I was going to say that was one of my big things. I'll say the fun and the excitement of agents. At least we're not professional athletes. We don't have to give these agents 10 or 20% of our paycheck, but they're going to help us and do a number of different things. Right. So the word agents is great. So I'm going to cover off, just like Eric, and sharing our time and everything else. With customer engagement, you guys all know all the different business applications, things that are there: sales, customer service, field service, customer insights. I probably could take over the 90 minutes that Scott has shared with all the different business applications. You'll notice not in here, but they've got a number of different additions too. Is contact center for some of you that might have contact center or whatever. Just like Eric talked about with those Microsoft Learn articles, that's where you go and you go get that key information. So let's dive right in really with sales. So when we think of sales and what's available and what we can help with from a sales standpoint is going back to that idea or that concept of agents. So how is the solution, as we talk about software and solutions, and we think of traditionally of entering data and having a place to capture, but how is it really enabling us and enabling those sellers? We know sellers, when we think of sales, we're thinking of those sellers, and they don't want to do the admin work, or it's spending hours with the research time and things along those lines. They want to be talking to people and engaging and things like that. So how can these agents go ahead and assist with that? And so there's a concept and an idea around the sales qualification agent. And part of that sales qualification agent has three agents that are a part of it. So agents helping another agent. And really, first initially is that research agent and saying, hey, how can I take data from our CRM system? What do we already know? And things like that. Or connecting it up and looking at public websites and sources and thinking about if we're dealing with those larger companies, the annual reports, the 10Ks, those types of things, to gather all of that data and then leverage another agent for prioritization and saying, who should we engage with more effectively? If I have 2 to 3 times what I need to hit my goals in pipe, where do I need to prioritize my time? Which leads should I be engaging in? Which clients should I be talking to? All of those types of things. And then let the engagement agent really help by taking that data and personalizing those emails to engage in the lead or the person or the different people that are there. So really being able to help the salesperson in reducing the hours they're doing and sifting out through all this information, having that intern, having that virtual person go and do a number of that legwork to surface it up and help us and be more efficient in how we're doing our job. And really being able to tailor that qualification agent to bringing in things like industry or business needs and other things like that. We talk about with the engagement agents, the auto generating drafts of relevant answers from different knowledge sources, different places that are there within your system. They talk about when you're engaging or what kind of data you're bringing forth and connecting, making those connections with SharePoint and some SharePoint data that you might have in doing that. Also letting those agents help with transforming data quality by deduping records and bringing forth and setting up, hey, this is really how I can help clean the system. We know as we talk with a lot of prospects and clients and things as far as how much information is in there or how is one person putting something in versus another, that we want to keep that data clean. So really helping with deduping and things that we're doing. And then the enhanced lead prioritization. So taking even marketing interactions and things. So on my screenshot here, as far as that you've got and surfacing up and saying, hey, of all these different open leads you have, here's a number, your top 5 or your top 3 that you really should engage with and go ahead and do and provide. So from the sales, some of the highlights and some of the key things that are there, talking about agents and how it can really help those sellers be more efficient in what they need to do.
Yeah, I really love that, Bill. Like, once again, the agents, right? A research agent that's going to have more tasks that it can do. The inter-agent aspect as well. I think people don't understand that Copilot Studio, for example, the triggers that they have are actually Power Automates that are running in the background, which are really, really cool and then expansive, where you could basically have almost any type of a trigger potentially here in the future that could drive these agents and the interaction with them. So I love this. I guess the key thing for the audience would be agents like large language models that we deal with, like with Copilot, are fantastic at pattern matching with data. Not with pattern matching with numbers, but with words. So the reason I know that, I've been going through lots of different things in my life type of a thing, and I've been able to basically use that then to find then different types of patterns in terms of notes, documentation, records that are involved with it, and it just does a really good job of doing that. So these are great use cases then as an example to kind of cover that other customers should be thinking about, because remember, while we have this in D365 sales, maybe you don't have sales, maybe you should get it, but if you don't have it, and let's say you do have Copilot Studio, well, you could build agents as well that tackle some of these particular use cases fairly easily as well. So it's a really cool highlight, Bill, to kind of say here.
Sure. No, that's great. That's great. Appreciate that. So as we go in and we go to the next one, we think about customer service. So we've sold them, we've brought them on board. Now we're going to interact. How can we help and what we're doing? And we think about there's different categories. I think Microsoft does a great job in breaking out of where the enhancements are and what are they doing. Obviously, they're putting a lot of money in a lot of things. We've been talking a lot about Copilot and AI, and hopefully I'm not stealing Scott's thunder later on as he's doing some different things there. But really what we do and some of the highlights on customer service is those email template recommendations, those different ways to bring forth and say, here's how you can really help or engage with that client. I'm excited about, they talk about customer sentiment indicators on the email. We're always thinking, and as I'm demoing and talking to prospects and clients, relative to sentiment, and when we were saying the voice, and we had that connection to voice with customer service and omnichannel. Well, now getting that sentiment analysis or understanding in the email. So doing that, inserting other prompts in the email templates, those boxes, a little bit of what Eric showed from the box and the chatting with Copilot and bringing some things, or helping contextual partial email content. So some different things there relative to as we're doing those email interactions and how we're able to do it and help us serve that customer a little bit better in analyzing and giving us a little bit more insight and feedback as we communicate via email. We also, as far as the customer service representative experience, so the couple different things that they're doing, and they found in that feedback they get from different clients relative to restoring session after a browser refresh. They need to do that, or configuring rules override on an SIL-based automatic actions and you want to stay within your service level agreements and doing that, but if they can put it on pause because somebody has to go away or do something, that they have that capability and can do that, or being able to have the service reps personalize their views a little bit more in their inbox, so it's a little bit easier for what they want to do. We all know, as we've created our own views or set up a couple different settings in Outlook that we do on a day-to-day basis on what I enjoy as compared to maybe what Scott or Eric do and how they look at things. So really doing that. I think the last one is really key, is the modernization and the refresh of the UI of the customer service workspace, and how they're going ahead and bringing more of a new island type user interfaces, rounded edges, to really being able to bring some things up. The timeline control, being able to see things a little bit more visibly, efficiently, a faster, cleaner, more interactive experience as they're doing that with that modernization and the refresh of the customer service workspace app. Finally, on the customer service side, as we think about it and we take a look at it, couple, I don't know, more straightforward or simple things from an admin or a unified routing aspect. If you guys have ever used, we're starting to use it at Stoneridge, our data sensitivity labels for different documents and things, but they're doing that, and Microsoft does that for email. And that's really key and important relative to compliance with GDPR or CCPA, all of those different crazy acronyms, but staying consistent with data protection across the different apps and protecting that sensitive information, which we all know is key to do and important for more and more businesses and industries as they're doing that. And then the routing rules, as we're doing unified routing within customer service, you used to have to go in and individually with each rule set and updating it and going in and saying, I got to change this and I can do that. Now they can have a rule say template that you can apply to the different queues and work streams and helping that. So as you a lot of people, as they say, can get into the hundreds and many different ones. So that can take hours and time. And how can Microsoft heard that, how they can be more efficient through that rule set template and applying it to many different queues and work streams to be able to speed that process up and do that well.
Bill, I'm seeing that across all platforms where it's just easier to do some of this standard routing or admin work where you just don't, I mean, you don't have time to know all the intricacies. They've just made it so much easier to go in and make the rule changes that pretty quickly.
Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the key. And it's good listening that they're listening to do
Yep.
that. So
Agreed.
my favorite components, as I mentioned, and Eric talked about that integration with field service, but a couple field service enhancements or productivity that they're doing. And we know the importance of the offline capability for mobility with those technicians. But one of the different things in part of setting it up or doing it is setting up that offline profile. Well, if the technician happens to be in a little bit more, if you call it hybrid, or yeah, I got connections once in a while, or no, I don't, as compared to completely being out in the middle of nowhere, being able to say, no, I want to go online and click, or what's my status? Am I online now or am I offline? To be able to see that and do that so they can update things a little quicker and doing that. And then also when you're setting up that offline profile, being able to select those specific tables to include in the mobile offline sync. And we know that's really important as far as how much data should be downloaded or uploaded as you need to in helping to decide which columns of those tables and what you need to do to make that more efficient and improve the performance. And we're talking about improving performance and improving performance of the system. We're all human. Different things happen, and it's good to Microsoft gets that feedback and understands is they've done some updates with the schedule board, and as they released it and put some different things in there, slowed down the performance a little bit. They didn't quite get it, and make sure they double check with their QA team. So they're taking a step back. They're moving a step back to go back and improve that, improve the responsiveness of that schedule board and the performance of it. So, hey, no, appreciate that. Hey, we need to take a step back and do that. Sometimes we need to do that, but making sure that your businesses and everything else continue to move forward and move forth well as the assistant matching. Hearing more and more people as far as they have so many technicians, they're trying to make sure they're leveraging everybody as much as possible, but we might grab a technician from another location, even if it's across time zones, but being able to have that schedule assist match and look for other resources and do it better. If I'm close to the borderline and I'm in Indiana, I happen to be in the Midwest, and dealing with people that might be in the East Coast time frame as compared to the Central time frame, helping to improve that matching. That's a part of it on the field service side.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, a couple comments, like, so, like, improving schedule performance, right? Like, even just candid, like Business Central, right, Eric? Like, we went through just even recently, they did not a full re-architecture, but they were re-architecting some of the scalability capabilities of BC. I always think that that's just a good thing. Like, you've got this feature that you bring out, and then you just step back, and then you optimize it, because really you want to go to market to get the features and capabilities there, and then you look at the optimization with it. I think that makes sense. I guess the other thing I wanted to say too is I just had a Steve Ballmer nightmare as I was looking at chat. Rob goes technicians. I don't know if you guys remember the developers speech that he gave where he was all sweaty and that. Anyways, probably me and nerding out here. But anyways, thanks Rob for the nightmare. I appreciate it.
That's great. So we talked about sales, we talked about customer service, we talked about field service. Then I always like to talk about customer insights and the marketing and the things that are there. So going back as far as Copilot and AI, and this seems like it's been out there a little while, and looking at the notes and things it's been in preview for a while. But as Eric talked about, things can slide, things can change. When is it going to come in with general availability? Well, Microsoft right now has that general availability coming up here in the next couple of months for creating journeys by using the Copilot to describe them. So really being able to have it assist, not necessarily an agent, but that Copilot box to say, help me create this marketing journey in what I need to do, so that it can set up some initial things for you and for those marketers as they're generating a number of different ones. I think the other things, and they give it a nice title of moments that matter. And if there's certain individuals or people that you want to put back into a one-time journey, as we've found out a couple things, being able to do that, exporting data for your own storage or custom reporting, and heat map analysis on the email engagement. And here, this one, it's got it as far as where in the email are they clicking? Are they
That's
doing
pretty
some
cool.
different things?
Right.
I think that's pretty cool. Um, Pause and resuming journeys, if there's different events, different things that happen, maybe even in the world, or understanding that, being able to do that, or specific quiet times that you want to engage in and saying, hey, I don't want to send it this time, or maybe I've got to pause it for a day for a holiday or something like that. You can do that. Scaling it with much more monthly interactions, waiting to see on before we go and really have that segment membership, um, and we want to trigger or have them go in there, you can have a delay, and that's a little further down as far as, hey, if we want to do that or delay that trigger when they've been joined or come into that segment membership. I was talking earlier about sales and how are we helping sales with their pipeline, sales with what they're doing. Well, obviously marketing and sales go hand in hand. So how are we being able to automate and help that handoff between marketing and sales as we're putting in with journeys and saying, hey, this person clicked through here, went through this part of the journey, create that phone call for the seller because they've engaged so much, or collecting that other information and things that's available. Um, with insights, if you happen to be leveraging it, you know about the ability to manage different events. So in doing that, in being able to create or tie in that event portal with your own website, a lot of people have their own websites already, but the APIs and being able to make that connection and help in order to do that. We can obviously do more with event portals, leveraging it with Power Pages. I think also with events, I think one of the keys is if you have a very successful event, you're reaching specific capacities, and you want to be able to have that wait list, you can do that now. And bring in wait list registrations and think about, hey, if we have some cancellations, we can bring in a couple of these wait list individuals so we can stay at capacity and really optimize our ROI and what we're doing with different events, and then setting up and executing those pre and post event communications to stay engaged with those clients, which is the ultimate key to customer insights and customer journeys and what needs to be done.
Hey, Bill, I'm looking at that top right slide. Sorry to cut you, but it just looks super clean. I mean, that's great because at the end of the day, you're not seeing a whole lot of extra information, and it just makes adoption that much better.
Absolutely. I mean, I always go to, and we're getting to the world of, I'm not a developer. I don't write in zeros and ones and did that. I
Yep.
did a little bit of that in school. I'm more of a seller, but to be able to natural language with Copilot, things that are really easy to lay out for people to put together, and that's a journey, and being able to add. So they're adding the components to the journey of not just click, send them another email. No, hey, they have engagement. Let's set up a phone call. Let's set up a meeting. Those types of things is what's really being shown up there, which is really key and important. So makes it that citizen person that's interacting.
That's awesome. Carly's getting all excited of these features, Bill. I don't know. We're going to have to probably implement these capabilities at Stoneridge now as well.
Absolutely.
She's putting a heat map
Absolutely.
analysis for emails equals a marketer's dream, and I agree,
Dream.
right?
Yeah.
Right?
That's great. Um, the other thing with customer insights, and this is by no means an exhaustive list, but customer insights, we're usually talking about journeys and events and different things. But I think one of the big keys, or one of the neat things about customer insights, is the data, is all of that data, and the marketers, and Carly will probably tell us as far as what are we capturing, how are we capturing that data, what are we doing with that data. There's a lot of good nuggets and information that we're capturing as you market and you send out things to prospects and your customers and things like that. So what are you able to do? What's the functionality that Microsoft is providing more and more to do that, of accelerating time to insights with data in the Delta Lake format, or filtering more rows? I've seen previously filtering columns and cleaning it up for better processing and understanding, and saying, I don't need this, or I need this, as far as what we're doing. So getting it to Fabric Lake One. Scott's probably talked about it, or you hear about it a little bit more, Microsoft Fabric, of how we can do some different things and where we can put that data and how we can transform and do those things as well, or the One Lake as a data source, how we can bring those into different areas so we can report on them better. Yes, there's integrations, some different things with Power BI, but if we really want to do some things, we need to have it in those locations to really good analysis and Power BI reports and things that are there. And then Copilot and AI, grounded in customer insights when chatting with Copilot, accuracy of those autonomous agents by grounding them, so getting a little bit more grounding, and then targeting the right audience based on signals from those earlier campaigns. That extra data that we've got, of how do we personalize even more, and really helping them and engaging with them and having them think about it and making sure that we can convert them into that more warm or hot prospect and opportunity that we want to do for our sellers to ultimately have them become a customer. So a lot of exciting things and different things. Once again, this is not an exhaustive list with Dynamic CE, but I think it's great. I think it's exciting with the different AI components, the agents, the other things that are there. And I invite you, just like Erica talked about, Microsoft Learn. There's a whole big list, laundry list. Click in. There's some great screenshots, some other different things that are there that can educate you more on what's important, what's coming, and what's important for your organization, that you can say, yes, we need to leverage this or implement this, and how can Stoneridge help that as well.
Awesome. Well, Bill, this is great content. It's like we're starting to see here more and more, right? We're starting to see more of these agent capabilities inside of the solution, which I just find just to be, so dang powerful, right, as we go through this. So I'm really looking forward to kind of in the future here when we start seeing agents that do more of those base capabilities as well, right? Like having something that allows me basically to go through and then generate orders. And then on the sales side, like you had the lead portion of it. Like if you combine those, then potentially, right, where they're doing handoffs now of that information, I don't know, it just becomes a really powerful prospect in my mind to drive that forward, I guess. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to feel like more than likely I'm talking at 1,000,000 miles an hour because I have a lot of content to go through. These gentlemen had a couple slides. I have 40. Well, you'll see why I have 40. We've got a different style that I typically go through, right, as we go through really all this content. So let me go ahead and just make sure I've got everything set up here. Bill and team, I've got you right there. So, and you guys can interrupt me as needed. Now, remember, team, we're basically going to go a little bit later on this presentation as we go through this. So, yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen, and let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so for my content that I'm going to be going through, we're going to be covering really the finance supply chain and really the Copilot enablement-based capabilities of the Microsoft platform. And I'm going to generalize the M365 Copilot with the Dynamics products because, quite candidly, they actually impact our Dynamics products pretty heavily. But I'm going to also let you know that, remember, an M365 Copilot that we're going to talk through doesn't require Dynamics to use those capabilities. So, like I said, pitter patter, let's get at her. Let's kind of dig in here. So one of the very first things that we want to talk about is really the capabilities that are coming on the finance and operations or finance and supply chain management platform. Remember, finance, supply chain, project operations, and human resources, and also commerce are the products that are on that platform. Very similar to CE, has sales, customer service, field service, right? So we've got that kind of layout here as part of it. Now, one of the really cool features that's happening here is the the fact that we are actually looking at getting really this capability of being able to ask natural language questions about ERP data. So if you want to look up, for example, sales order detail, or if you want to understand, for example, what you've shipped potentially, and you're inside of a chat experience inside of one of those Copilot agents, we're going to be able to ask questions about that data. Eric, I think BC already has this feature, right? And I think as well, CE already has this feature. So it's going to be a really good addition on the F&O side, because quite candidly, there's been a little bit of a lag in terms of the Copilot enablement for the sidecar experience with F&O, and that's mainly because of the complexity of how large of a system that is, right? So we're starting to see these features that are in other applications now come front and center inside of F&SCM as we go through this. And then, so that's going to be preview here really for this release. And then when we look at the next one here, we're really looking at that enable support for asynchronous operations. That's becoming GA. What that is remember when you have dual write, where you're copying data back and forth basically between the Dataverse environment and then also the finance and supply chain environment. They've done a lot of performance enhancements around that to make it even better, right? So this is an example then of some of those base capabilities that are needed that really then drive some of that adoption and some of those technical capabilities that you may need in an org. An example would be if you want to build a Power App and you want to use F&SCM data, well, if you have dual write, you can then natively use it in the Dataverse scenario with it, and you can even do like virtual tables and things like that to be able to drive it. So it's a really cool feature in that regard to be able to tackle that. So let's go through some of the finance-based capabilities here that are coming out as well. So basically what we've done now is we've flipped over to finance, and what we're going to do is we're going to cover really some of those main core features here. So first off, create dimensions and cubes using Copilot and business performance planning. So think about it this way. We have the ability now basically to go through and then take not only financial tags, but also some of the different types of attributes that are related then to data that can now be a dimension inside of our business planning performance workbench. And what that is really is it's a new reporting engine that you can use to do analytics inside of finance and supply chain management. So they've added now the ability for those attributes that are on like lots and serial numbers and things of that nature that you custom set up to now come over into that particular business performance planning workspace. And then it allows us basically to slice and dice that and use them as a measure or as a dimension when we're going through a lot of our processing. So a really great capability there as a part of it. We've seen the introduction now in times of this is all business performance I should frame as well for this. We've seen now that we've got this new acquire to dispose data model that looks at fixed assets and acquisition, depreciation, all those fun things that you may want to report off of. It was in preview before. It's now being GA'd, which is pretty cool. We've got the ability now as part of our planning based capability inside of there to actually use outlier detection when we're generating some of these reports. So if you think about it from a reporting model perspective, when we're dealing with basically, it wouldn't be like you could do it with demand planning, right? But if you're looking at any type of financial performance that you're looking at it, you may want to take out that $10 million deal that you won because you typically win $1 million deals, right? So having the system automatically detect that outlier is pretty cool. You've got now the ability as well to set up the refresh cadence, because by default with the business performance workbench or planning workbench, you had the ability basically to refresh data, I think it was twice a day. And now they're looking at having the ability to have more updates, a better cadence with that, so you can get more to that near real-time based perspective. And then obviously the setup of this, because remember the business performance capabilities are actually something that exists inside of really the Dataverse and the Canvas apps as part of it, or model-driven apps. So making that easier to set up is a really key component that the team has tackled, and it really drives forward some of those base capabilities. Now, in terms of general functionality inside of Dynamics 365 Finance, I'm not going to cover every single one, but there are a couple of them that I was like, these are pretty cool and they're pretty big in terms of what they're going to impact with it. So the first is we've had a lot of bank reconciliation updates recently. For example, we've had some statement updates that are inside of even this release that we're really focused on last release as well. And now what we're starting to see is we're seeing additional functionality that can be done like from a bank reconciliation journal, right? So as an example, you can cancel a customer payment directly now from the reconciliation worksheet, which is a nice quality of life type enhancement inside of the system that I know people that do bank recs are probably going to like in that situation. The other thing that's here is that we're getting a new general ledger design. And this I did not know about. And I'm just like, what is going on here? But what's happening is we're getting a new ledger account as part of this for the new journal framework. Why are we doing this? Well, I don't know if you know in the past, but we had this new capability that was added that was a third-party service, not third-party, but it was an external service that would make journal imports faster or dimensional checking faster. And the team at Microsoft basically started going down the path of restructuring how journals work inside of Dynamics 365. So this is a really cool concept because first phase here, we're going to look at obviously only like general ledger or ledger adjustments, which would be the type field, right, that you select, and you could select ledger or fixed asset or customer. Eric, very similar to BC, right, in our journal design that's there. But basically, better performance, better validation, better import capabilities, more ability to process down to the voucher level for the approvals as well as we go through that, and basically a new voucher type that's going to basically identify what type of transaction is being entered inside of there. And here's the other cool thing about it. We're going to have new entities exposed in both the OData and then the data management framework, so that we can import journals faster. So before it was a little bit harder to use the OData connection to upload journals. Well, you're programmatically going to be able to do that now as a part of it. So this is a really cool feature in that regard. Now, subsequent waves, they're going to add then the customer, project, bank, so on and so forth with the general journal. They're going to obviously increase or basically increase the capabilities regarding the reversals as well, because reversals do generate journals typically as part of that process. And they're going to address some of those data model issues to fix one voucher type scenarios, and then evaluate the additional use of journals like a bank transfer journal that will be a part of it in future waves. But if you look at this journal, I will tell you it looks a lot better than where we were at before. This is a screenshot that's on the release notes with it, but as you can see here, adding new lines, specifying the account type, the red for the error, which is we have an error on a specific line now that we can see this with. This has always been a problem in many business systems, right? Where you build a journal and then basically you have to run the posting for it to get the error messages. Well, here we've got a status field that's displaying if it's in error or not. So this is getting pretty dang fancy as we go through this. And Joe, I see you're on as well. So this is a feature I thought was really cool just to kind of highlight. Now, beyond that, remember, there's also going to be more visualization inside of here, right? So as you kind of go to the journal, instead of having that one screen with the journals and you click on the general, instead we're going to have here our journal batch that we click on, and it shows you what's been posted, what's not posted, and what has errors as an example. And what's really cool here is that we have multi-company posting, USMF, DMF, and USSI in this example, that you can actually post to along with the error messages that are being displayed inside of here. So it's just adding a lot of great capabilities, along with then some of the grouping that may be needed from a voucher line overview when you're looking at this detail to see then, well, I've got one invoice that's an error here. You could go to that, fix it, and then repost it as part of it. So a lot of great capabilities in that regard to really drive that. Now, beyond the new ledger, we've got a couple of other features that have been expanded upon as well with 3, 4, and 5 here, because we've covered 1 and 2. 3 is enabling financial tags for purchase order invoicing. So this is becoming generally available now. Financial tags are a way, they're like dimensions, but they're not dimensions. So they allow us basically to have a different subset of tags that we can associate then with documents, like on the sales side or in journals. And now we're looking at purchasing as part of it. That basically allow us to then travel that to the general ledger just like a dimension, so we can slice and dice that as a part of it. So we're seeing two major things that are happening here, where we're going to, number one, get it on the purchase order invoicing processing, and then also when it comes to the record to report model that's in the business performance framework, we can now use that capability to basically go through and then drive that as well. So it's a really nice feature, and I see these financial tags really expanding in the future, where maybe you don't want to use dimensions, you don't want to use financial tags, and they're a more performant way to maybe tag data compared to dimensions inside of the system. And then the other thing here is that we're going to be seeing an introduction of this preview of the automatic bank reconciliation matching. And this is a pretty cool feature, because what happens is that when you're doing your bank rec and you run those matching rules that need to occur with it, and wait until the AI enablement around that even more than where it's at. But what's going to happen here is it can preview it for you, so that way you can basically then say yes or no to those matches, click on the button, and then it will apply those matches. Very similar to when we do our payment proposal on the payment journals inside of our system. So a really nice feature in that regard to be able to really, really drive that inside of the system. I find that a very nice quality of life thing. And use agents for recommended actions on account reconciliation. This is going to be the future of what finance and supply chain management is going to have from our unique user interface that we have with that platform. More specifically, let's take a look at this. So we're going to start seeing more and more of the workspaces updated to basically have Copilot enablement natively inside of them. So that way what happens is when you wake up and you get to your desk, or you log into the system sitting at home, no matter where you are in the world, what you'll be able to do is basically go into that workspace, and it will already have different types of recommendations and exceptions that it found that you need to potentially tackle. Because you can see here that there was a reconciliation run that was automated, that might have been through a batch process. There was an agent that then examined that particular batch that was run, and then from there it's identifying then what those exceptions are. And this has been a big thing that we've talked about at Stone Ridge when it comes to, we don't want customers to focus on all the minutia. You don't run a report and then hunt for with your yellow highlighter to find what those exceptions are. We want the system to tell you what those exceptions are, so you focus on that. So this is going to be something that is going to be more common inside of the system. We're going to see more enablement then around Copilot, where it's going to identify basically which particular ledgers potentially have issues. And in this example, remember, this is more for some of those closing operations that you may be doing, where you're doing those reconciliations at the end of the month for your tax, AP, AR. How many times have you gone through and had an issue with the detail and ledgers not matching? Well, this is fantastic, because now you can just have Copilot go through and do that matching and do that identification for you. So this is making it easier and faster to do closes, which I'm sure everyone is going to love as part of that in the future. Now, beyond this, we've got some additional capabilities then from the supply chain perspective that are becoming very, very, very cool in my mind. So I get really excited around the AI enablement, because if we look at the capabilities of this wave, there's a lot around AI enablement. And I know people are, they're just like, it's so annoying that we hear this AI, AI, AI. Well, it's 2 years where it takes a while to develop a platform, unify it, and go through all of those, things inside of a business to then be able to supply those capabilities. So from a supply chain perspective, we have now obviously an automated procure to pay task with a supplier communication agent. And this is a really cool concept that I hope as well comes to our Business Central perspective as well here in the future. So what this is basically we can set up the system to follow up on purchase orders, where we can have it automatically draft and get ready emails based upon a specific status or trigger that happens on a particular purchase order. So let's say, for example, that you were expecting a receipt of a particular product, but that receipt didn't come in that day for some reason. Well, how would you find that? You would say every morning you'd run a process. If you were in charge of your purchasing, for example, you might run a process to say, well, what was I supposed to receive that was on my confirmed receipt date, for example, that I didn't receive as a part of that, right? So this is really powerful in the fact that it allows you to then very quickly identify what those gaps are, and then from there take action with it as you go through that process. So just as an example, here's again a new workspace, right, that we're looking at here, where we have, for example, 4 different work items that are assigned to Julia Funderburk, I think is what her name is inside of our environment. But you can see basically that you have follow-up with vendors that you may need to check, and so there's 2 draft emails that would be generated inside of here that you would then be able to basically respond to. And what's really cool about this is that you can actually go through and set up what those tasks or thresholds are, and then from there define that so it will generate that email for you to start. You, as we all know, these large language models are really good at generating content. Well, now it's generating the response to an email so you can be closer then to that connection with your supplier as you go through that process. So a really powerful feature in that regard to drive that forward. Now, some of the other things that are coming here from a supply chain perspective, so conversations going with follow-up questions, kind of a minor feature, but just want to show it because, you know, in terms of like additional questions to ask, right, that we see within some of the other systems, we're now getting that first-party support then to be able to do that inside of finance and supply chain management as they update that sidecar experience with it. So it's really nice to have this. I expect as well that we're going to be able to then extend this as well to add new types of questions that we may want to have based upon a topic and path that we set up inside of Copilot Studio. So a really good feature in that regard. Now, some of the other 2 that I want to talk about, enhanced supply chain traceability with tracking attributes, and then the regulatory compliance and quality excellence. The quality excellence is really interesting, so I want to hold off on that, but supply chain traceability with tracking attributes, like being able now basically to use the planning optimization and then having those tracking attributes is going to be a really major feature. Now, planning optimization is going to have that detail inside of it so that you can basically use then that engine to drive that. And then from the regulatory and compliance and quality perspective, it has been a long time since our quality management has been updated. So I'm super excited about this. Here, look at this, CAPA management. So this is huge for medical device, right? So we think about having CAPA native or first-party capabilities inside of our application. That is something that's really being looked at from that regulatory perspective. And the other things that are here would be things like new quality order triggers and different types of electronic signatures that are there, right? Joe, right? CAPA, I see your reply in here. So this is going to be really nice. We're going to see absolutely like quality management workspaces updated too. This, like I said, I'm super excited to see these capabilities, and we're going to see the preview of that as we go through this with the next version of the product. So beyond that, then enhancing with demand forecasting and planning. I don't know if Clyde is still on, but I wanted to kind of give this a little fair shot as well as we go through it. So first and foremost, looks like I cut off my A there, but assortment planning. So if we think about the new capabilities, forecasting top to bottom and allocating based upon different dimensions with an allocation basis. That wasn't a feature that we had. We could do it with multiple steps, but now we're going to be able to define what that basis is and what that split would be. We have the ability now to do time freezes so that if you don't want demand planning to modify the next 2 months because your industry doesn't allow for that fluidity inside of demand planning, these freezes are going to be really important then for your industry, and that's going to be a native capability. We have the ability as well now to have forecasting with signals, right? So that if you choose between the profit or XGBoost algorithm, basically you're going to be able to get the results for a combination of all those dimensions and choose the right one for that forecast. And then the automatic detection of seasonality, right? Like, so that's been something that's really kind of common in many industries. So having it automatically now do it, running that algorithm against it to basically identify seasonality, probably using MAPE or something else like that to get to that value is going to be a really, really nice feature. And just to kind of highlight that, as you can see here, I've got the handle outliers. There's that wonderful STL with the seasonality inside of here. So you're going to be able to go through then and define some of those additional steps that you can use in that model to then get your outliers, forecast with a signal, and then save that forecast inside of the system. And there's more, right? I feel like a salesperson sometimes with this, right? So we like look at this analysis. Like we're seeing trend updates, we're seeing history updates that shows what happened with the movements that were coming around with it. What are comments that are being incorporated into it? We've got Copilot enablement that's doing the analysis of this, as you can see, from an AI generated perspective as well. We also then have generative insights, a workspace now where we're going to be able to see then some of this from a reporting perspective. And as you can see, it's just getting even better and better and better when we look at like signal correlation based upon temperature or inflation or combined as an example here. We can see the impact then to forecast, and in the top right here we can also then see, for example, the Copilot type terms stating what's happening here so you can understand your data a little bit better as you're kind of navigating this. And then finally, being able to configure basically these for ARIMA or different models that are going to be here for that timeline. This is just going to be a really nice feature, and it's a really nice refresh that we're going to start seeing then in the demand planning. So if you're using demand planning, you're going to get even more features here, which is going to be a really, really, really good thing. And then finally, kind of the last two here. So really implement lean manufacturing, catch weight, and step consumption. That's in the planning optimization. We're now starting to get the lean manufacturing capabilities incorporated into our new planning engine. So as you've known, this has been like a 3 or 4 year process that we've been going through and taking our old planning engine and replacing it with this new planning optimization engine, which is way faster. Now we're starting to see catch weight, step consumption, and lean manufacturing incorporated. And then finally, I don't have any screenshots with this, but manage supplier relationships and improve collaboration. Guess what we're getting there? We're getting a new portal, right? So this is going to be a really good thing. We're going to have it absolutely on our Power Pages, right? And so this is going to be a portal then experience as opposed to what we have for our vendor collaboration workspace, where we can do that right now, but you have to be inside of the Dynamics 365 application. And I'll tell you, it felt kind of like a feature checkoff, to be quite honest, of saying, hey, have your supplier log into the finance and supply chain interface. And I'm just like, yeah, I think a web interface would probably be a little bit better. That's more specific towards collaboration compared to, you know, our workspaces, which are much more business transactional focused, obviously. So this is going to be a welcome feature in addition as well as we go through that. So lots of good stuff coming. We're going to see more and more. That's going to just keep on coming from preview to GA as we go through this as well. Now, Copilot. I wanted to cover really 4 different areas with Copilot, right? And so sales, service, finance, and then also Copilot Studio as well, because there's going to be some major enhancements here that I'm going to just broadcast here. Bill and Eric, you may not be able to hear the volume, but I'll just make sure it's a 3-minute video that I want the team to see as we go through this as well. So for Copilot, number 1, we have the ability now to easily save meeting notes to CRM following a Teams meeting. This, to me, is huge because what it allows is a bunch of different things. Number 1, with Teams, the meeting transcript data is actually inside of what we call Microsoft Graph, which is really the API that you use to access any of the Outlook, Teams, OneNote, Active Directory, or what we call Entra now, right? That's the interface or the web service architecture that you use to call that to get that information. And when you do a Teams meeting and you do the transcript, it saves that transcript related to basically that Teams meeting. Now, the nice thing about this is that we are now going to be able to take those meeting notes and then attach them then into Dynamics 365 Sales as an example. Now, here's the cool thing about this. because those meeting notes are going to then save a record inside of Dynamics, we can also then take triggers through Power Automate, as you can imagine, and do other things with those meeting notes. We could say format it a specific way and then create another record with it. Or we could say, for example, based off of the content here, send a summary to the business leaders that need to know about this information because this call had some type of attribute related to it on the opportunity or on the lead or on the record that we're attaching it to. So there's just going to be a lot of great capabilities that we're going to be able to do by taking really this M365 product, which is Teams, and then saving that data back into then the environment so we can then associate those details and really know what's going on. Another example would be demos, right? You do a demo, you have the meeting notes that are there, it saves it to the opportunity. Any seller that goes to that opportunity or that record that's related to it is going to be able to see then what you talked about and what you covered as a part of that. So it's just, once again, getting to that. A lot of people don't want to look through, basically audio recording or video, right? This makes it a bit easier to find that information faster and then take those actions inside of your business environment. The other one that's here is the access and analyze data with a sales agent, right? And I'm not going to go too much into this. So remember, Bill was showing you really the agents that exist inside of Dynamics 365 for sales. So when we talk about Copilot enablement, it's a little confusing. Microsoft really has to do a better job with this, in my opinion. They're trying to, but it still is a bit confusing. So remember, Copilot in Dynamics 365 Sales, for example, is a capability that is native when you buy Dynamics 365 Sales, right? Copilot for Sales allows you then to basically install different types of applications inside of Outlook and Teams that then can connect to Dynamics 365 or could connect to Salesforce or any other third-party CRM solution. So what they're adding here is the ability then to basically connect that agent in the for perspective, which is not natively connected to sales, unless you configure it to do that, but natively then you connect it to your CRM system, and then from there you're going to be able to ask questions of data and then interact with it. As you can see here, we've got the Salesforce. I'm not going to say much about that, right? But you can see I'll ask me about your sales tasks, and I'll provide quick answers using Microsoft 365 and Salesforce info. Because once again, no one's perfect, right? I know we all can't run Dynamics 365 Sales, so net result here is that you can connect to your CRM application as needed, and if you want to in the future, you can even connect that then to Dynamics 365 Sales as you see those capabilities. So a little tongue-in-cheek there, but really fun capability as well that we're going to see. And then finally, being able to access Copilot for Sales from within the mobile Outlook, right? So it's been something that's been a gap for a little bit. We're going to see that come front and center now. As you can see here, you can ask Copilot to do drafting and some of those different tasks. Just expect this to kind of increase in terms of capability in the future here as well. Now, beyond that, let's keep going. Let's go for Copilot for Service, right? So not a lot of screenshots here. Microsoft didn't have a lot published with it, but what we're going to be able to do is basically embed case summary customizations inside of your CRM system. So one of the problems that has been out there really for the for products is the extensibility layer, right, that is needed for it. How do we actually customize those solutions to then look at additional detail that might be inside of that CRM environment? In Dynamics 365 Sales, it's an easy concept, but if you think about it with Salesforce or some of those other third-party CRM systems, you may want to then integrate or have additional fields that come back that you use then inside of that Copilot for Service. So being able to embed that case summary detail and connect to it, as well as basically using additional sources in third-party CRM systems where you can connect it to different data sources, is going to be a nice feature that's going to expand really that Copilot for Service-based capability inside of our environments. So once again, just more around the extensibility layer that we're seeing updated with it. The other one here, though, is the new introduction of Copilot for Finance. And if you haven't heard of Copilot for Finance, basically it's going to allow us to analyze different types of variances and take data out of Dynamics 365, for example, finance and supply chain, technically you could get Copilot for Finance and do a custom integration then into Business Central, and I'm sure there's going to be a partner that's going to tackle that as well. But what you're going to be able to do is basically use Excel to do the analysis of it, look at supplementary data with it, use the Microsoft 365 Copilot extensibility as well then to basically customize or expand that capability, and then also manage those account receivable perspectives inside of Teams with Copilot for Finance. And this is a really cool concept where, for example, you're going to be able to basically go through and define what are called work list items inside of the application. You're going to be able to do pre-call preparation where, based off of the collections coordinators and the data that has the detail regarding that customer, as well as maybe with call scripts, you're going to be able to have AI generate really some of that pre-prep stuff that's needed, which we see very commonly then as well, even within Teams for meeting information that we interact with. You're going to be able to do some dialing support inside of here as well, and then also be able to provide summaries and transcripts and calls inside of Dataverse, and then recommend the next best actions based upon that post-call support perspective. So that's going to be a really nice feature here in the future to drive some of that finance then integration inside of the environment. And we've always theorized that Teams is going to become more important here over time, but we are absolutely excited to see some of those new features coming there, so people that work in Teams that may not have Dynamics can still get their job done and interact then in a very comfortable workspace. The other thing here too, use Copilot for Finance and Copilot for Finance for macroeconomic analysis. Don't know too much about this yet. I haven't seen it. My expectation here is that it's going to have the ability to go to news sources and get that detail, and then use that then for, like, if there is all of a sudden some type of major impact in shipping, maybe that's going to make it longer for you to get product, which is going to affect then your financials potentially. So I think this is going to be something that gives you a workspace very similar to the supply chain portal that we had for a while there, or that portal that would do some of that alignment at a higher level of some of those economic factors that were there. But I'm looking forward to seeing really what this kind of culminates into as we see this Copilot for Finance product finally get to preview and then hopefully GA shortly after. Now, the last one I want to show really quickly here is going to be Copilot Studio. So if you don't know what Copilot Studio is the architecture that we use to enhance the Copilot experience, whether it's in Copilot for Finance, Copilot in Dynamics, or your own custom agent inside of M365. Copilot Studio is what we use to go through and customize Copilots, where we add topics, we add large language model integration, we add the ability to call Power Automate, for example, or to create records inside of Business Central, or Finance and Supply Chain, or Dataverse, which includes CE then as well. So Copilot Studio is your first party application that you typically use then to extend then the Copilot capabilities. And what's really cool about it is that it's a low code, no code type concept, so that you as an individual can go ahead and expand on those capabilities. So I wanted to just highlight what those new features are. This is about a 4-minute video, so I'm going to go ahead and play this, and let's talk through it at the end to kind of say what these features are inside of the application.
With generative AI and a powerful dialogue builder, Microsoft Copilot Studio lets you create your own conversational experiences and make them available to users across more channels than ever before. The latest release of Copilot Studio is introducing multimodality capabilities to support voice and IVR solutions. This will transform your agents into a modern, generative AI-powered IVR. Configuring it is as easy as creating a normal agent. Just start by giving it a name. Once you're in the overview, describe what you want the agent to do in natural language with instructions. You can then set up your knowledge sources, actions, and topics as usual. When you're done, if you want to make it voice-enabled, you can configure a rich set of voice authoring features. Enabling voice settings gives you access to capabilities such as voice authoring, speech recognition, D2MF settings, how to handle silence or latency, and how long the agent should keep listening to especially talkative people. Once you set up the voice-enabled agent, you can test it. While you're testing in speech and ETMF mode, your inputs simulate a phone call IVR interaction. You can test the user's input from speech or DTMF codes with a simulated dial pad and see the speech response in a text output. It now even supports voice agents in multiple languages. Se voglio fare una domanda in italiano a Copilot, lui capisce e risponde nella mia lingua. In addition to speech, we're now introducing new autonomous capabilities with triggers. A trigger will prompt your agent to act when a specific event occurs. For example, when a new employee is added to the system, a row creation in a Dataverse contact table would initiate a trigger for the agent to act. These triggers enable your agent to work for you without any explicit user-initiated request. All right, you now have a voice-enabled agent that can be activated either via voice or via a trigger. So let's test it before deploying it. You can test your triggers and view the agent's decisions as the triggers occur. You can view the steps and systems involved. This will give you a great understanding of why the agent chose a particular action and the context around it. This is crucial for debugging. You can also see the various runs for these new trigger types. It shows any failed runs or blockers, tracks trends, and allows you to review earlier decisions. Once testing is complete, simply deploy the agent to your preferred channel and it's ready to use. Because this agent is optimized for IVR, it can be deployed to voice-enabled channels like Dynamics 365 Customer Service or Contact Center, or your own third-party system. Agents built in Copilot Studio can be used to extend and deploy agents through other Microsoft Copilots, such as Microsoft 365 Copilot. Any agent made available from Copilot Studio to Microsoft 365 can be selected and queried by any user who has access to the agent and the knowledge sources it uses. And how do you control that? Why, with good governance, of course. No matter where you've created or deployed your agents, the Copilot Hub can track, manage, and govern them. Custom Copilots can be enabled for users across the Power Platform environments and applications. And to help monitor your agents, Copilot Hub includes analytics with recommendations and insights to allow you to identify issues and address them early on. To learn more about these and other new features being released in this upcoming release wave of Copilot Studio, check out the 2025 Wave 1 release notes.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So I'll kind of summarize it. I don't know if Bill and Eric, could you guys hear it or not as you went through it?
No, we couldn't. But it looked pretty cool.
Yeah, it looked cool, right? So 4 minutes of silence for you guys. So basically just high level. So one of the most important features I think that's in there is those automated agents, those triggers that you can now set up. And one of the things to note is that those triggers, remember, are actually running inside of Power Automate. And so it's really cool when you start looking at what you could potentially do then longer term with that, where based off of any system, you could have an automated reaction then to data that it sends based upon that trigger data. You could have it come from Salesforce. You could have it come from Dynamics. You could have it come from an email that comes inbound. You could have it if you have a website, for example, that when an event occurs, it fires off then an automate as a part of it. So I think longer term here, we're going to see more and more really of those native capabilities inside of here to really drive that, which candidly, I'm super excited to start seeing, because once again, these automated agents, we're going to have to figure out some of the billing methodology with it, right? Because I think that's something candidly like every customer should be thinking through, is that as you get more of these automated agents, you're going to be paying then for really that large language model usage to be able to drive that. But if you think about the scale that you can kind of tackle with that longer term, it's going to be a fantastic feature. And like I said, we're really looking forward to those capabilities. The last thing I'd like to say too would be the governance perspective with it. I will tell you, like we don't do like the deep detailed security like intrusion detection and all that kind of stuff, but we manage security with Copilot when we enable it, because we need to make sure it's not accessing data it's not supposed to access, right? So having some of that governance perspective built in natively now, not using Purview or an additional Microsoft application, but still having it integrate into that, but then using then those capabilities on the Power Platform, I think it's just going to be a really, really, really powerful capability. So I guess with that, yeah, it's been action-packed there. I had to run through quite a bit of slides, right? So, yeah, so let's kind of summarize it. So thank you, everyone, again for joining. I think we did 97 minutes, which isn't too bad for all the content we had to go through. Great job, Bill and Eric. Thank you for that. Lot of good chat that was on here as well that was in the background. Really want to say thank you to everyone that was interacting as well. It's a lot of fun for us to get that feedback and then understand like what feature is really cool and what feature is like type of a thing. But yeah, overall, it's like I said, been a fantastic confab. So thank you for your time. And then finally here, just so you know, our cadence is back up. We've got the technical issues out of the way. 2 weeks from now, we're going to look at then obviously going through another confab. So make sure you mark it on your calendar, and I can guarantee it's going to be a fun time. So with that, Eric and Bill, thank you. I don't know if you guys have any parting words.
No,
Thank
but
you, everybody.
thank you.
All
Great
right.
to be a part of it.
Yep.
All right. Well, appreciate your help and have a great one, and we'll talk to everyone later. Goodbye.
Sounds good. Thank you.